Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of A Gardener's Journey Homestead. I am Barbara. I'm in my tunnel today and we got, of course, a long to-do list, but a limited amount of time. So we are going to get to it. If you are new here, I feel like it was something in my eye. Okay, so if you're new here, welcome. I'm in Tennessee in Zone 7B and I am glad that you are here. I want you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button in faith, because you're going to love it. Here we have an awesome community, and if you've been here before, thank you so much for continuing to tune in and hang out with me in the garden. So I have been out of town. That is the story of my life this month of May. I'm in and out. So I'm trying to do the best I can with the time that I have. So it has been raining a ton. Probably for the last 5 or 6 days, there's been rain like every day. And I think tonight is supposed to be like a big thunderstorm. I say all that to say that the gardens outside, they're popping. Like I'm seeing peppers. I'm seeing flowers on tomatoes. They are loving the rainwater. And so I have to show you that on another video. But it's very, very humid. It is extremely humid, especially in this tunnel. But today is the day that we say goodbye to the cabbages. The time has come. The time has come. So if you're new here, basically in my tunnel, oh, that breeze feels so good. So good, because I am burning up. It's so humid out here. Okay, so if you're new here, basically in the tunnel, we have kind of transitioned everything from the spring to the summer, have all of our summer crops out in the tunnel. I have a space of 2 rows that has cabbages in it. Now, I do my cabbages in the fall and the winter. I don't do cabbages in the spring going into the summer, just because insects, bugs, and all that. We have been blessed that we have not had that as of yet. We have had a great cabbage harvest, so to speak, better than I've ever had. And I still got, I call it cabbage row. I'll show you cabbage row. But where the cabbages are now is where the rest of my tomatoes and cucumbers need to go in the tunnel. And I wanted to pull them up when I first planted out my tomatoes in the tunnel, which was about a month ago now. But the cabbages were looking so good, but I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna have time to head. Okay, so I didn't know if the cabbages would have time to head. Well, they headed. And I've shown you on some other videos where I've already harvested like 2 big ones and several small ones. But today they gotta come out, y'all. They have to come out on this video. Here's the reason. My tomatoes, I've been telling you, they look overgrown and they need to go in the ground, and I can't afford to lose tomatoes due to the cabbages. And again, the cabbages have headed. We're going to get what we can. We can use the leaves for the rest, but whatever cabbage heads we have, we're going to go ahead and get. But here's the other thing, is that I have these starts that need to go in the ground. And because I'm not going to be here, there's no way for me to get them watered. That's the real dilemma that I'm facing. By the time you see this video, I would already have been gone and come back. So, because for safety reasons, you want to tell people that you're not at home. But I'm always not at home a lot of times. But I try to be ahead. So by the time you see this video, I would have come back. But at the time of shooting this video, I'm about to go out of town. Everybody's going to be out of town. And so nobody's going to be here to water. Now, we have drip everywhere else. But if it's in a pot or a container, it's not going to get watered. Obviously, I'll water before I go, but when it comes to these plant starts and the temperatures, they have to be watered every day. Some of my herbs and stuff in pots, they'll be fine. They'll look dry and they'll bounce back, but not the starts. So I got to get them in the ground. That's what I'm saying. So let's head over to what I call cabbage row. Let's see what we're working with and let's get to harvesting. This is what I'm calling cabbage row. You see, I have these 2 rows here that go about halfway down that are full of cabbages. This row on the far left is where my cucumbers are going to go. And then on the row right beside is where the tomatoes are going to go. You can see I have tomatoes already in the back half of that second row. And then I have peppers behind the first row. So all these cabbages have got to come up. It's time to say goodbye to cabbage row. So let's get to harvesting and see how many cabbages that are fully formed that we have. Okay, y'all. Cabbage row, we have said goodbye. My husband is just pulling up the roots for me. You can see I have a whole lot of leaves on the ground. We got plenty of leaves to keep, and a lot of these leaves are diseased. Okay, so we got the cabbages in time. There's lots of bugs. These are not nearly as clean as the ones that I picked last week. The cabbage itself and the head is still good, but a lot of the leaves have become lacy with holes in them. I'm not keeping those leaves because, yeah, I'm not keeping them. I got plenty of leaves in my freezer that we have already. My freezer is about full. I'll show you the cabbages that we have. We have 3 baskets of cabbages. I didn't count as I was going, but if I had to guess, I have at least 15 cabbages, which is more than I've ever had, plus the ones that I've already harvested. I think I've already harvested maybe 8 or so. So it has been a good cabbage harvest. Now I got to figure out what I'm gonna do with all this cabbage. I know that somebody mentioned I could make chow chow, so thank you for that. Let me know if anybody has freeze-dried cabbage. I know that you can freeze-dry it. My question is, though, when I cook it, how is it going to taste? Like, I'm assuming it's going to lose the crunch. And I kind of steam my cabbage. It doesn't necessarily have a crunch. Like, it's not soft, but it doesn't have a crunch either. So I don't know why I'm concerned about it. But I'm wondering if you ever freeze-dried cabbage. Let me know, and let me know how you cooked it. Because otherwise, I mean, I know that it'll stay in my refrigerator probably 2 or 3 weeks, but I can't eat 15 cabbages in 3 weeks. I know that I can't. So I got to find a way to preserve it. I've already given, I took cabbage to church last week and gave some of those away. So let me know, drop your ideas about cabbage. But cabbage row is officially done. My husband's just going through, pulling up the roots. I'm going to clean up all the cabbage mess. There's lots of like roly-polies, lots of bugs. So it was definitely time. But I would say for the most part, most of them headed pretty nicely. I'll show you as I get this cleaned up and show you kind of the average of what we got. But I'm pretty proud of my cabbage harvest. If you've been watching, you know I have not been successful at cabbage. This was the first year that I've been successful with cabbage on a large scale. So I'm very grateful for that. That's why I always say, just keep going. Don't give up. So now let me clean up this mess. And then we're going to move over to the tomatoes. Y'all, the tomatoes have gone crazy. Like, it's already time to trellis them. And I need to prune them. They are big. So I'll show you that in just a second. Hey guys, that hurt my back. All that bending trying to get all those leaves together. I wanted to show you what the leaves were looking like and the reason why I didn't keep them. But once I got to the inner part, all of that was good. So I feel like I got them in time. But like this, I'm not going to keep this and try to save it. So I got a bag of leaves, mostly that look like this. But I wanted to at least show you what the damage looked like on the outer part. But thank God the cabbages on the inside are intact. Let me show you one of the cabbages. Oh, look at this bok choy I just harvested. You see that? That's a bok choy. Look at that. Here is one of the cabbages I harvested. That's a average size. I didn't count, y'all, but it's at least 15. I got 3 baskets full. It's now starting to pour down rain. It's pouring down raining. So hopefully you can still hear me. Let me show you the tomatoes in the tunnel. They have been planted for right around a month now. I started all of these as seeds. They are doing extremely well. But once you see them, you'll see why I say it's time to trellis and prune. Look at these little small trees called tomatoes, y'all. If you go back and look at my April garden tour, which was probably 2 weeks ago, you know they were not this big. They have really exploded. You would think they're getting rainwater, but they're not. I already have some flowers you can see on there, but they need to be pruned big time. And you can see my husband has already started trellising. Let me talk to you a little bit about the method that we're using to trellis, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about pruning as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about trellising your tomatoes. Now, in a previous video, I've talked about the two different types of tomatoes. One is indeterminate and one is indeterminate. And so what I just showed you are indeterminate tomatoes. That means that they keep producing fruit all throughout the season. They have an indeterminate amount of fruit, an indeterminate height. They just keep going and going and going. Versus a determinate tomato is determined, meaning they put on their fruit all at one time. They do not grow as tall. They get to a defined height and they put on a set amount of fruit at one time and then they stop. So that's the main difference. Most of the tomatoes that you're going to find in the store, like if you're buying them from big box stores, are going to be indeterminate tomatoes. Most of the tomatoes I grow are indeterminate tomatoes. The only tomatoes that I grow that are determinate are usually Roma, which is a paste tomato, and Galahad. I did that one last year. Most of the time it's going to be indeterminate. And so if they're indeterminate, you need to trellis your tomatoes. If they're determinate, then you usually don't have to trellis them because they're going to grow in a bush habit, and they're probably only going to get like 4 to 5 feet tall, maybe, depending on the variety. You may need to stake it, but you don't have to go all out and do a trellising method like what I'm going to show you here. So there's several different ways to trellis your tomatoes. But let me be clear, if you are growing indeterminate tomatoes, pick a way to trellis. It's going to be very difficult for you to grow indeterminate tomatoes without trellising. They're going to get wild, they're going to be all over the place, and it's going to hurt the growth. And you're going to be frustrated because you're not going to be able to get to your fruit. It's just going to be a mess. How do I know? Because I did it in my first year. I remember I grew some Brandywine tomatoes, which Brandywines grow tall anyway, and to me they're already a little wild. But I did not have a good trellising system. I was using stakes. And again, I'm not gonna say I've tried everything, but I've tried a few things. So I have tried like the green stakes before. They do okay, they don't do great. I have tried tomato cages. Tomato cages to me are more for your bush or your determinate varieties, not for indeterminate, because they're gonna grow out of the cage. I've tried cattle panels. I use cattle panels in my in-ground garden outside. Those work good for that, for sure. But last year in the tunnel where I am right now, we tried a new method and we really, really loved it. And it's using string. I guess you call it string trellising. So basically we have what do you call that rod up at the top that we bought? It's a piece of conduit that runs across this way in the tunnel, and then we get some jute twine and we put it on top of the conduit and we string it down to the base of the tomato. We use a landscape staple to secure it at the bottom, and then we clip the tomato with tomato clips to the string. I will take you off the tripod and show you. It's getting dark, so it may be difficult to see, plus the string is like a light brown color. But let me show you and see if you can see it. And you can see my husband here. That's the conduit up there. He's putting the string. So let me just take you all the way down to another one that he's already done. So you can see the string there that's tied there, and then I'm going to come all the way down. Here is the tomato plant. You can see that we have it clipped to the string. And then if I go all the way down, there is the same string secured with a landscape staple. So we're just going to clip it all the way up. Now, with this method, the biggest investment is the conduit, right, that we bought last year. But once you buy that, you're set. This jute twine is the same roll we had last year. These clips are from last year. I'll probably have to buy some more clips because I'm not good at keeping all the clips. I will, but it comes to a certain point in the season when I'm pulling stuff up that I may not go back and get all the clips. Okay? I mean, yeah, that's what happens. But that's the biggest investment, is the conduit pipe. And that conduit pipe was pretty expensive, if I remember correctly. What do you think we spent? $100? He said, okay, he said it wasn't expensive.
It wasn't that expensive.
$100 for all of it?
Yeah.
Okay, he said $100 for all of it. Expensive is relative, okay? But my point is that once we did that, we don't have to do that anymore. And this worked really, really well. So basically what my goal is each week, I have a system that I try to follow. I prune my tomatoes weekly, and then I clip them as they grow up. I continue to clip them up the string. Now, by the end of the season, it gets a little hairy because everything is coming in. It's harvest time, and so I was not as diligent at the last part of the season as I was at the beginning, but that's what happens. Life's. So I do the best that I can, just like you're doing the best that you can. But that ideally is what happens. Is I'll prune the tomatoes every single week, and then as they're growing up, I continue to clip them up. It makes it very nice and neat. It keeps it clean, and it just looks good, and they don't get all wild. It works really, really well. And you would think, excuse me, that twine or whatever would not hold a tomato plant, but it actually does. At the end of the last season, I want to say the tomatoes were definitely way above the conduit. I mean, they were like 7-8 feet tall. They keep growing and growing and growing until, you know, the season is over. Now, let's talk a little bit about pruning. You want to prune your tomatoes. Now, I know there are different schools of thought about to prune or not to prune. I'm a big proponent of pruning, especially if you're growing indeterminate tomatoes. If you're growing determinate tomatoes, because they're going to put all their fruit on at one time, I don't think there's a reason or a need to prune. But indeterminate tomatoes, to me, I like pruning because it keeps, helps with disease. You can keep, because you want to have airflow with your tomatoes, right? And so you want to have airflow at the bottom. If you don't prune, then the leaves and stuff touch the ground. You got leaves all on the bottom. But if you prune and have a good amount of airflow, that's going to help with disease on your tomatoes. And also, to me, it looks cleaner. Now, here's the school of thought, is that if you prune your tomatoes, you get more tomatoes. They're just smaller. If you don't prune your tomatoes, then they grow bigger and you just get less. That's what I've heard. Ever since I started pruning, to me, I've had better success. In my first 2 years of gardening, I did not prune. I also was not trellising right. I also was not fertilizing. I did not have a good tomato harvest. And it could have been from any of those things. No fertilization, no pruning, improper trellising. So I'm not going to say that it was just because of pruning. But what I do know is that last year I had an excellent tomato harvest, despite that I had an aphid infestation at the very beginning of the season. If you were here with me, you saw that. I had a huge aphid infestation in the tunnel and out there with my tomatoes, and I thought I was not going to have tomatoes at all. And we ended the season with a very good harvest. So I am a proponent of pruning. So let me see if I can turn the camera around, and I'm going to show you how I prune. Hey yo, it's the next day, and a lot has happened in about 16 hours. So I was shooting the video last night, and I was about to show you, I don't think I did. I was about to show you the pruning of the tomatoes. The bottom fell out. It started raining, thundering, and lightning. So that was our signal to go ahead and go in the house. We were under a tornado warning until like 8:30 p.m. Then it got extended to 3 a.m. But it was very, very quiet. Like there was hardly any rain at all. People kept calling, checking on us. I'm like, it's not doing anything here, even though it says we're under a tornado. We were under a tornado warning until 8:30, and then a tornado watch until 3 a.m. But there was really nothing happening. I went to bed around probably between 12:30 and 1, and there was nothing going on. The kids were still up. I said, hey, wake us up if the weather gets bad. I woke up this morning at 7 a.m. and we had no power. And my daughter had texted me that we lost power about 3 a.m. It is now about noon the next day, and we still have no power. So that's what has happened, and that's why I wasn't able to show you the pruning of the tomatoes, because literally as I turned on the camera, it just came out of nowhere in terms of just heavy downpour, thundering and lightning, and we just kind of packed up and went on to the house. So we're without power. If you followed me for any length of time, you know that we were without water for 10 days in December or January. I don't remember, because we had really bad weather. Now, I'm not complaining. We are safe. Nothing on our property got damaged or hit, so that is a blessing. I came into the tunnel. Everything in the tunnel is fine, except the tomatoes that we did not string up last night. They're all on the ground, but they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They just need to be stood up. It's just because they're kind of top heavy. So I'll show you that. So my husband is trying to hook up our generator that we have that's been sitting in our garage. And I grabbed me a little granola bar, and I was like, you know what? Let me see if he figures that out. If not, then we'll have to go and, you know, figure out food and stuff like that. But I'm like, while I got this time, let me just come on back to the tunnel because it's my happy place. I can't really work because we don't have power, no internet and all that good stuff. So I'm out in the tunnel. What I've already done is I fertilized the in-ground garden this morning, and I fertilized in here. And I just thought about it. I'm like, it don't feel hot in here, but I just looked at the temperature. It's like 90 degrees in here. Okay, a bee was trying to get me. I stepped outside for a minute. It feels really good out here. The temperature is only like 72 degrees outside. It's 90 degrees in the tunnel, but it really didn't feel like it. And what I was trying to say is, I hope it wasn't too hot to fertilize. You typically don't want to fertilize in the middle of the day. It's not the middle of the day yet. It's like mid-morning. It's 90 in there, but it sure don't feel like it. And maybe that's because the shade cloth is back on, but it feels good out here. It's like 72 degrees. So I'm sure the fertilization outside was fine. So we're going to pray that all is well. But I'm out here working just for a little bit until I either run out of energy because I have not had any substance or food, or my husband calls and tells me the lights are on or the generator's working or something. So I thought I would just turn the camera back on and we'll just pick up where we left off on yesterday. So I was talking about pruning. I talked about trellising. I was going to try to show you me pruning. I was able to prune, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 plants before the weather got really, really bad. So the other thing I'm going to do, and I think I'm going to do that first because I can always do the pruning later, is I'm going to go ahead and plant out what's going to go in those rows now that we've removed the cabbages. So on the far left row is going to be our cucumbers. I have a whole tray of cucumbers. So let's take a look and see what we have and see how many holes we have and which kind we want to plant out. We'll do that next. Okay, so we have 13 spaces for cucumbers, 12 spaces for tomatoes. So I have a whole tray of cucumbers here that I started from seed. You can see they're big and beautiful, and they're definitely ready to go out. So I have sashimi, which is like a long English cucumber. It's my first time doing that one. I have, let's see. That just says cucumbers. I don't know what kind that is. And then I have straight 8. And yeah, straight 8. So I think I have some Katrina cucumbers too. I definitely want to plant those. So I need to go find those. So if I have 13 spaces, I'll probably just do probably 6 Katrina, 3 straight 8, that's 9, and 4 sashimi. I think that's what I'm going to do. So let me go find my Katrina cucumbers. Those are the ones that are specifically bred for the greenhouse. I did those last year. They are so prolific. So let me go see if I can find those. Yeah, I got so many seeds left. Wait till I show you. Okay guys, we have all of our cucumbers in. So this row is complete. So next we're going to move over to this row, and that's where the rest of the tomatoes are going to go. I think I have 12 to 13 spaces here. Let me show you these tomatoes. They don't look great, but they're getting planted. Okay, so one variety I'm planting is called Cayman. It's a new variety to me, and it is a greenhouse variety. So I got it from Johnny's. It's specifically bred for the greenhouse for high heat and high humidity. I paid a lot of money for these seeds, but let's take a look at them. The plants. They don't look the best. I'm gonna take off the dead foliage and all of that. They've just been in these pots for so long, but it's not root bound. Evidence of the air pruning trays. You know that these trays that have the slit, it air prunes, so it prunes it all around so that you don't have, so it doesn't get root bound. So I'm going to plant it in the ground and see what happens. I think that it will bounce back once it gets some nutrition and gets in the ground. So we're going to plant 4 to 8 of those. And then I have 2 Cherokee Purples and 2 Big Beef Plus. So that is a total of 12. So let's do that and get those planted. And we're gonna pray that they bounce back. But this is just a result of them being in the pots for so long. This is what I was telling you about my dilemma about keeping the cabbages in or doing this. Now, worst case scenario, if for some reason they don't bounce back, then I cannot plant this space with tomatoes and then just have less tomatoes. I could plant it with something else, because the peppers that I have left, they still look good. They're not as root bound as this, or I could go buy some tomato starts. But because I spent quite a bit of money on these and they have not been planted out, I want to get them in the ground and give them a try. So let's do it. Okay, all the tomatoes are in, every last row. So I'm going to show you about the pruning of tomatoes, and then I'm going to go through and look and see if I have any extra holes that I can put a plant in. Like I see 1, 2, 3, like where I pulled up some cabbages on the other side. That's 3 more plants, because y'all, I still got plenty of plants. Let me show you about the pruning, and let's see if I can get a good angle and show you how to prune. You can see all the foliage at the bottom. It's going to be hard for me to get a good angle to show you as well as I want to. But basically, and this one you see is not completely standing up. And this is what happens when you don't prune, because these are 2 different plants. They need to be stood up with the string. But I'm going to start at the bottom, and be careful where you're cutting. I'm taking off this bottom limb there. This is going to help create some airflow. That is a weed that's trying to grow. So I'm taking off the bottom all the way around. And then the part that you really want to prune is called the sucker. So if you look at your plant, it almost like makes a V. So the part that's making the V, the part that's in between, is called a sucker. A sucker will grow a whole nother tomato plant. So again, I prune the suckers or cut them off. So if I start to stand this plant up, you can see already we have more airflow down here. Let me get these branches right here. And I'll try to show you a sucker up close. But hopefully you can tell the difference. As I stand this plant up, there's airflow right around here. I prune pretty heavily because I want all of the bottom leaves to be gone. So now, once he stands it up, you can see I have open space down there. If you have questions about pruning, please put them down below. If you've never pruned before, because either you don't know how, did not know the importance of it, and you're nervous, prune a couple of your tomato plants and then don't prune the other ones and see the difference, right? That is a good way to test it out. That's a good way to learn and to understand what to do. But basically, you're going to take off the bottom foliage, and then where the sucker is, where it meets the V, and I'll have to see if I can get a good shot of one. Let me try one more time to see if I can get a good shot. Okay, so this is one of my tomato plants. You can see that it's almost like a V here. This part here is what I would prune off, the part that's in the middle. Let me back it up. So you see where it creates a V here? I'm going to snip that part right here, because this whole thing is called a sucker. It's going to create a whole nother tomato plant. Now you may say it'll give me more tomatoes, but it gets really wild and unruly. So for me, I prune my suckers, and to me, I have better success that way. So that's a quick lesson on pruning and trellising. I'm gonna finish the rest of this pruning and just knock it out, and then hopefully my husband, the ones that are laying, the tomatoes that are laying on the ground, he can come down here and string trellis those hopefully by tomorrow, and get them standing up Y'all, so let me give you an update. So this video, I started shooting this video yesterday. I told you we had bad weather storms. I came out here this morning, told you we lost power. I've left, gone on, run errands. I came back, we still have no power. So this is really at the end of the second day that I'm shooting this. We still have no power. Right now we're at, let's see, we're about 16, 17 hours without power. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. If you were here back in the winter, you know we went 10 days without water, and boy, was it a challenge. There were several power lines that were down. I want to say it was, I think I saw the number like 8 to 10 or something like that. Very severe damage. I think in my county, there were 14,400 people without power. At 2 o'clock, they had restored all but 6,700. Your girl is in the 6,700 because that was at 2 o'clock. And right now it's almost 7 p.m. and we still don't have power. So yeah, they said they're working diligently. They have crews working around the clock. So hopefully we will get power before the end of the night. What I'm most concerned about is, one, it gets really expensive if you have to try to find some food and go out to eat when you weren't planning to. That's number one. Number two, I'm concerned about all the stuff that I have in my freezers. I have thousands of dollars worth of stuff in my deep freezers. So I'm really concerned about that. I looked up that it can last 48 hours. So we're not even at the 24-hour mark. And so I have full faith and confidence that we will have power back before that 48-hour mark. I did go and get some ice to stack a cooler, and we put some stuff in the refrigerator in a cooler. It's amazing how, like, y'all, a bag of ice used to be like $1 and, I don't know, 50 cents. It's $3 a bag. And we have one of those big Yeti coolers, which it takes a lot of ice to fill up. So we've done that. My husband got the generator working, but the generation, so right now he has the generator on one of our refrigerators in the house. He just got that going like an hour ago. But my stuff is still cold, so I'm thinking it's going to be okay. When you see this video, it'll probably all be over. Bye. But please say a prayer for us. Again, I'm grateful we did not have any damage, but say a prayer for us that we get some power, like real quick. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I feel like because I shot it over 2 days and a lot's been going on in the background, I feel like it is scattered. Now, once I put it all together, it may not be scattered, but if it is, I apologize. I apologize. I was just trying to finish the video and get stuff done at the same time. But remember, gardening is a journey. This is part of it because your personal life blends in with your gardening life. And so when there's something going on, we have to adjust and do all the things. Remember, gardening is a journey. Let's grow together. I'll see you next time, friend.